Hello, this is Dr. Paul Dyer. Welcome to Bridges Live. It's another show here with Bridges Live with Dr. Paul. I'd like to thank all my sponsors, and of course, thank you all the listeners and the people who are doing the downloading. If you have any questions or comments, I'd like to thank you for all your comments. You can reach me at drpaulholisticscience.com. People know about Bridges Live. It's about information, understanding, and action. So we like to talk with Samira Jones. And everyone, welcome her to Bridges Live. Welcome, Samira.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. First, bring people on to what you do and how and what it is that you do and all that good and great grand stuff, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So I am Samira Jones. I am the CEO of Game Changer Life, LLC, and what I do is I embrace, educate, and elevate entrepreneurs, authors, and new brands into becoming profitable businesses. And I do that by way of my program. I am also a speaker myself. I have 2 books, one that was just released in September, which is Game Changer Life. The anthology. It is a book of 20 authors who shared that pivotal moment in their life that changed the game. As we know, it's oftentimes those pivotal moments that are the catalyst for becoming entrepreneurs. And so not everyone in the book is an entrepreneur, but everyone in the book has an amazing story, and they have different walks of life, which makes it so amazing to read, because you have people who have been in prison, who have, had same-sex relationships, who have had drug addictions and sex addictions and all sorts of things. And so that's that book there. It was forwarded by Kim Coles. We had an amazing journey with that book. My other book is a memoir, and that one is titled Tough Skin, A Journey of Survival and Persevering on Life's Challenges. And all of these books, by the way, are on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Books A Million. Excuse me. And that book talks about a couple of my game-changing moments, those pivotal, defining moments in my life. One being when I was a young child who was abandoned by my mother and stepfather when I was 13 years old, after being raped and molested and physically, emotionally abused at home. I was given away. And it goes on to speak about my marriage. I was abandoned again in my marriage in 2014 when my husband decided to walk away. He looked at me and said, "I love you. You're amazing. You're beautiful. You're a great mom. And you're powerful. And you're going to do amazing things. But I just don't love you the same, and I have to go." So another game-changing moment, right? I had to figure out my life again. I had to create my new normal. And in that book, I show people how I did that.
You know, I liked how you put it about create your new normal, because when I do grief sharing, as far as some of the things I do with emotional exercises or reaction training, it is creating a new normal. What are some of those things you found out, or you finding how people can create that new normal for them?
A very good question. Well, first you have to get still. And when I say still, I mean you have to, I use this term, quiet the noise. You know, we live in a very noisy world. We have a lot of distractions. We have the television. We have the radio. We have people. When you have to get still, sometimes that means taking in inventory of the people who are in your life, the things that you're listening to, the things that you're watching, and become mindful. I really took a lot of inventory in becoming mindful and really unpacking those things that were a part of my life during that time, so that I can be still and so that I can hear God and understand what my next steps were. Oftentimes, I know you've heard that 3 o'clock wake-up call out of your sleep. And I received that often. And in doing so, I began to become a creative and get a lot of ideas. And during this journey also, I'm very transparent on social media, and I shared my journey, whether it's a new book I picked up. You know, I started really looking into the self-help section of the bookstore and reading some of those books. And it was in 2015 when I attended my very first conference. And Lisa Nichols was on the stage, and it felt like I was the only person in the room.
Wow. And
tears just started streaming down my face because I was embarrassed because I had a very good life, Mr. Dyer. And when I heard Lisa Nichols say, "Stop hiding," I knew she was talking to me, even though she did not know me at the time. I had taken myself off of social media for about 8 months and just really kept to myself. I became isolated, but in a good way. I mean, I didn't feel depressed. I intentionally became isolated so that I can focus on me and my children. But then I realized that what I was also doing was pulling away from the people who I had been pouring into for so long when I was on social media. So right there in the middle of that conference, I opened my phone back up and I apologized. And I said to them, I remember I said a whole lot, but there's this one line that I remember I said, and it went like this. It says, "I've always shown you the best of me, but when life happened, I didn't show you the rest of me." And when I said that, that was in relation to me shutting myself down on social media. And I apologized, and I said, I'll never do that again. And the outpour of love was amazing. I mean, folks were crying. They were inboxing me. They were like, "We missed you. Don't ever do that again." They were contacting folks that they didn't even know, just looking, trying to find out where I was. And so I made that promise. And so now when I need a break, because sometimes I still need a social media break, I'll announce it. I'll say, "Hey, I'm going to be off, for a certain amount of time," and do it that way instead of just disappearing. But, yeah.
One of the I love doing what I do here on Bridges Live, and again, thank you for Samira for coming on Bridges Live with me, and with my kids and life experiences, learning how to embrace that. That is the beautiful thing about finding thyself, finding yourself. You said something. I think you're disappearing a little bit. I don't know if it's a connection. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah. One of the things you said was about. It was more when you said I had to reopen myself up. Now I know we get confusing between communication and telling things. When you open yourself back up, would you think of that yourself as communicating with, or allowing you to be received?
When you say allowing me to be received,
right? So
you mean by other people,
right? Because sometimes we like to give love, but it's hard for other people to receive what they're going or not going to get. That's a difficult part for people.
So this is the thing. I share out of transparency, and whoever it's for, they're going to get it.
Okay, yeah.
I don't expect everyone to get it and to receive it because my message and my walk is not for everyone. And those people will know who they are, and they'll receive it.
It's kind of like when you were in that seminar, when you felt like she was talking to you.
Absolutely. There you go. There you go.
I know a lot of people out here as we try to, and that's why I love doing Bridges, is to really communicate and for allow people to listen to what our heart is saying. And that's the beauty. We create these heart vibrations and these wave vibration, and when people are ready, we know they'll tune in. So when people are tuned out, how did you know you were tuned out before you decided to tune in?
I don't ever think I was tuned out.
Okay.
Even when I decided to come off of social media, that was intentional because I was tuned in. I realized that I needed some self-care at that time. That was the purpose of that. I needed some self-care, and self-care is very much tuned in. You have to have a certain level of mindfulness, a certain level of awareness about self in order to do that. You have to have an awareness about your peace, and that's the other thing. So I have this thing where I teach my clients to develop their one word. A lot of my journey and what I teach, rather, is based on my journey and how I became who I am today and where I am today. And my one word is peace. Your one word should be connected to your core. You should be able to pull from your one word to bring you back into your core when you have that day that's a little off, or, you may have had a conversation or disagreement, something that happened during the day that just knocked you a little off your rocker, which is okay because we're human. However, we have to bring it back in. And what are you bringing it back into? And so I've developed this thing of, what is your one word? My one word is peace. When I feel that I'm a little disconnected, I realize, okay, Samira, are you experiencing peace? No, you're not. So you need to now find it. What are those things that bring me peace? And you just discover those things, and you go after those things so that you can come back to your core. Do you have a one word, Dr. Dyer?
I do. When you said peace, it's a great. My word is life, and it comes from my youthful experiences, adult experiences, and here's how I got to life. As a young...
Are you saying life?
Life.
L-I-F-E.
L-I-F-E.
Gotcha.
I got my mother. I disappeared from my mom when I was 8 years old, and I couldn't find my way. I left a building I wasn't supposed to leave. I was in the city, the Bronx, New York, all by myself, and it got dark. That was the first incident of me being. My mother didn't abandon me, but I walked away from her. Okay. So that was my first traumatic experience. After that, age of 13, a friend of mine I was standing next to got his chest blown out with a shotgun. The next experience I connected to was that I knew an uncle who hung himself. And then it rolls into the military, and then and I was in a lot of elite force, so seeing a lot of death in its process, and then in my adult life, trying to commit suicide. All that, to me, now, I find life living. That's why I say I teach the living sciences, understanding how life is affecting you through chemical, emotional, and physical responses, and how it reacts to you. So life is my word, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that is a lot. That is a whole lot. And I can see that being your one word, because that's something that makes you, those experiences make you treasure that word even more.
Mm-hmm.
Because of having those experiences. Wow. Life.
And I think that's a great thing with you when you did Game Changer. I think I'm totally going to snag that word from you. Like, people find your one word. When I talk to my kids or talk to people, I say find who you are, know thyself. What you are, when you are, and how you are. Even teaching the martial sciences, it's not so much about the physical, but it is about peace. But it's all of it, right? And you even simplified it. What's your one word that signifies who you are? Now, I'm sure people listening and says, can your word change? So I'm going to ask you that. If when people hear it, they're like, wait a minute, can my word change? So.
Right. Of course your word can change, because life evolves.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually have more than one word depending on what the situation is. You can have a couple of one words. One word really means one word in that moment, but it's still that one word, that anchor that you need in that given time. Right now, my one word all the way around is peace.
Yeah.
Because that's the space I'm in life right now. Coming off of a divorce, being a caretaker of my elderly aunt who's 95, that requires a lot of my time. Just this weekend, I took some time away with my Bold Moves tribe. It's a tribe of 4 beautiful women. We're all spiritually connected, and we decided to go to the Chesapeake Bay and share a room for the weekend and just spiritually connect and disconnect from everything else. Those are the things like that bring me peace. It brings me joy. And so I make it a point to do things like that. Like I say, I love the lakes. I love to go to the parks, and I love water. Our room was in front of the water, by the way. We had a waterfront room, so it was beautiful. We watched the sunset together while we listened to Christian music. We timed when the sunset was going to come up this weekend. It was just a beautiful experience. So right now, everything that I'm looking to serve me is bringing me peace. I'm in that state of peace right now. Later on, it could be something else. I don't know what that looked like, but right now, it's peace.
When I found peace, I was able to then listen to what God had directed me to do. And when you said that, clear the noise, it was very, very succinct about how complicated, even if you are what you call good persons and want to do great things, and you're so busy trying to do, you have not quieted yourself enough to be at peace, to hear the actual direction of what God has placed before you and where you need to be for the kingdom and not for thyself.
That's right.
So I do agree with that too, that connection. I have a really direct question, and coming from single mom who I rival in her teachings growing up. But when your husband left you, he walked away. He didn't leave you. He walked out on you. There are women who have been walked away from more violently, less violently, it doesn't matter. Walked away is a painful experience. What is something that you could, if you could say something to them to say that you're not alone?
I love this question. Well, they're not alone. I'm going to say that part.
Yeah.
You're not alone. At the same time, and I actually have this on the back of Tough Skin, the back of my book, and the very last line says, it's okay for certain parts of your life to be complete. Oftentimes, as life evolves, or even in relationships, so you mentioned the violent part, and obviously mine was nonviolent. I was blindsided. But even in the violence, sometimes God has to snatch us away when we can't walk away ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Something so traumatic has to happen in order for us to get out of the situation. But then we use that situation because we're still here, and we give God the glory and the honor and the praise for allowing us to still be here. In my case, it wasn't violent. It was really unexpected, but I still gave honor to my ex-husband for the time that we did have together, and I had to accept my new normal. Although I tell my story, I don't tell it from a bitter place because I didn't have a bitter marriage. Sometimes things just change, and people don't know how to deal with that. So I think he dealt with it the best way that he could at the time. and I dealt with it the best way that I could at the time.
You know, I as an older man, I guess in my mid-50s anyway, the question I have is, when I'm speaking to young men, whatever age men or young boys are at, can you see something, not in your ex-husband, what he didn't do or what he did do, but what was it something that you can reflect on that you think he could have done better to let you know where, instead of blindsiding you, that this was going this way? I know it's easy to say open communication, but was there something else a young man should know, or a man should know, coming from a woman's side?
You know, I hear your question, but that can go so many ways. You can't give one direct answer, because it all depends on a person's mindset.
Right.
And how is a person's mindset made up of? It's made up of their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So based on people's past experiences, which develops their mindset, they're all going to receive things differently. They're going to see things differently. So I don't think that's just a one-size-fits-all answer right there. It can be answered so many ways.
Yeah, and I was just trying to really nail it down, because even when I talk, I said sometimes, you know, most of the things, I call it the 5 E's of what can block us or what can propel us. That's through our emotions, our energies, our experiences, education, things that are taught to you in our environment. Those are the things that most people live on, and they don't know how much it, again, goes back to that emotional exercise. They don't know how much that's affecting them and their causes. So, and I think if we are honest with ourselves, that's what you also said, is be find your true self, then we can express that to our partners and say, I am feeling this because of this experience or because of these things I was taught. I'm doing things this way, in more of I'm doing it because I'm being conditioned, not because I'm learning.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's one, so I can add to a bigger part of that question that you asked. And the one thing that I would recommend, and, you know, everybody doesn't have emotional intelligence all the time. To be aware of the now, or even aware of the past, to even understand that I need help and there's some things in my life that needs to be addressed. So I highly recommend that when you don't feel your best self, to seek help. You know, in our community, in the African American community, there's this stigma against counseling. You know, you sitting on the couch. We came up with all of these crazy things about counseling, and folks really don't. They consider it a negative versus a positive. But it's a part of your mental health, and even that, you know, that phrase mental health, it has a negative connotation to it. You know, but your mental health is how you think and how you process who you are and the things that you do and the decisions that you make. And I believe that when we address our mental health, when we aren't feeling well, you know, we can't operate in our own strength all the time.
No.
You know, you definitely have to consider a professional, and you can't go based on what everybody's thoughts and feelings are about that if they haven't done it themselves, and it just continues just to be this negative mark in our society. Get some help. Get some help, because it'll avoid situations like this. One of the things that I say is that it's kind of irresponsible when you don't, because you affect generations, you affect your family, you leave people in the dark when we don't really know who you are and what you're going through. And then when you take all of that and you don't get help, and then you go into the next relationship,
you bring it with.
It's not only unfair to yourself, it's also unfair to the other person, and it's a cycle. It becomes a cycle, and then it becomes a cycle again, in broken relationships, in another relationship, and broken relationship again, 5 or 10 years down the road, And then you have all of these unhealthy people who just aren't healed.
I know it's, it's a phrase, hurt people, right?
Absolutely.
And in the African American community, in the black community, I say they're remaining sick because they don't know how sick they are. Because they've never found their peace. They never found that quietness to start listening to their sickness. And their sickness can be physical. Because if you're in physical pain, go to the doctor. You know what I mean? We know how many black people just don't go to the doctor. And maybe it's a trust issue. Maybe it's a financial issue. But they're not even seeking help, like asking, especially if you get on social media and say, hey, have you been feeling this way? There's so many support groups, right? So get help. Ask the question. Seek the answer. Because if you're not seeking the answer, then you're being conditioned in the response you're not doing. Samira Jones, thank you for Game Changer. We want to give people your website and how to get a hold of you so they can come hear you speak and get your books again and your website. Of course, I'm going to put this all on the podcast link, but in case they want to hear it from you too.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, my website is Samira, SAMIRAJONES.com. I'm on social media, Samira Jones as well. Excuse me, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and on Instagram. I also have Game Changer Life LLC. You can like me on Facebook. I have a Facebook community if you're an entrepreneur, a wantrepreneur. And that is the Game Changer.
Wantrepreneur.
Like that one on Dr. Dyer. Yeah.
I like, because so many people go like, man, I could do that.
Yeah. So if you are an entrepreneur or wantrepreneur, you can join my group on Facebook. It's the Game Changer Life Community. I actually am opening up the opportunity for the second anthology. So if you have a story that you would like to tell, you can reach out to me. My email address is GCL, which is Game Changer Life, at SamiraJones.com. And we are looking to start that process in January so that we can get that book rolling out. I think I shared everything with you. Oh, the book. So Game Changer Life, the anthology that we just released, is available on Amazon, Books A Million, and Barnes & Noble online. And Tough Skin, A Journey of Survival and Persevering Life's Challenges is also available on those at those retailers online as well.
Going to church and people talking, most people understand that testimonies they associate with church, or if they've been in a certain groups. Testimonies is fully expression of oneself. And we don't testify enough, and people don't listen to our testify. I don't understand, because we all have a story. And those stories are so important to understand us as human beings.
They're what connect us. And I think a lot of people, depending on what their story is, they may feel, like you mentioned earlier, I'm the only one, And then it also, this can go back for generations. There was a time where you didn't tell your story. What happened in the house stayed in the house, and it got swept under the rug. And so you have that too. You have some of that has been passed down over time. But your story isn't for you. Your story is for the next person who is going through something like you. And you may not know who that person is, but they'll discover you through you sharing your testimony.
And I think that's why I like doing Bridges Live with people like you and all my other guests, and who do so many amazing, wonderful things. I just want to say, God, thank you for Samira Jones for being in our lives and for sharing her testimony and giving us the gift of what she has given, allowing her to not be a survivor, but to me, in my words, to be a life giver. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dyer, for having me.
You have a great night. Thank you.
All right, you too, and thank you to your listeners. Appreciate you.